Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here. It is Thursday, August the 6th, 2020. Hope your Thursday is going well. We got a few things to talk about as we get ready to enter what is going to be a very important time in not only the hurricane season, but I think as far as the nation's history goes, this could be one of the most important hurricane seasons in our nation's history. And I don't say that lightly. We know what's going on in the background with the pandemic, the election year, and all that that implies. Throw on top of that these forecasts. I mean, this is right out of a Hollywood movie, and it's almost to the point of absurdity that we started the year off with the pandemic that grew globally. We have the election that's coming up in the United States and all the geopolitical friction that is associated with that. And I'm going to tell you what, thank goodness I am absolutely not into politics. I watch, I'm engaged, but that's where that ends. And then on top of that, the hurricanes are coming. Well, they're going to keep coming. We've already had 2 hit the United States. And you throw all that together, and I mean, if you went into a Hollywood studio and pitched this and said, hey, I have a movie that has all these elements in it, the studio owner would laugh at you and say, that's just ridiculous. We can't bankroll such an absurd movie with all of these elements, and you want to end it with all these big hurricanes that come and maybe wreck the economy further. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? And the thing is, at the beginning of the movie, it would say, based on a true story. I mean, wow. So, here we are. It is reality. And we saw the update today from NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, calling for 19 to 25 named storms total, 7 to 11 hurricanes, and 3 to 6 major hurricanes. Wow. I mean, and you throw in what Colorado State University released yesterday. There's a firm out of the UK called Tropical Storm Risk, TSR. They are also forecasting a very busy season. And then we see this tweet here from Ben today that, no, this isn't ideal, but it is what it is. That the JMA, Japanese Meteorological Agency, 200 millibar velocity potential just lights up. We're in the orange now. We go to green across the board here through the middle part of August. There it is right there, the 15th through the 31st, and then actually ending September 5th. And the Atlantic just gets lit up and stays that way. And this is not, like I talked about this yesterday, with all that's going on with the pandemic and the questions and the people wondering about what's true, what's not true. At least this is something we are familiar with. We can hang our hat on it, that we know we can rely on this data. The meteorology is there. The hindcasting, where you go back and you look at other busy seasons, you figure out those fingerprints of how they got to be busy and see if that matches up to this year. That's all real, man. I mean, I talked about it yesterday. This just adds to it. This information here, people like Ben, that they bring to the table, Jack Sillen, Eric Webb, we talk about stuff that he tweets, and many, many others. So we're going to have to rely on these experts here. These are the cast. These people make up the cast of the movie. If this was a big Hollywood blockbuster movie, these are your scientists. You think about Armageddon and The Day After Tomorrow, how absurd those movies. Great eye candy, right? But ridiculous plots, marginal acting. This is all real. It's amazing. And we have to focus on it and say, okay, what am I going to do about it? And the word is simple. It's to prepare. Prepare mentally, prepare physically, and also financially, or what we call fiscally, the fiscal responsibility that you have, to stay prepared. And it's hard for some people. I realize that. But here we go. This is the ECMWF seasonal update just came out. The Atlantic ACE, 120% of normal. The ECMWF is usually pretty conservative kind of like that little yellow line I just drew. That's terrible. There we go. This is usually pretty conservative overall. And for it to show 120% of normal, wow. Okay, and the warm fall across the U.S. indicates lots of ridging, very little troughing, and these are the signals, okay? This is, the science is there. We're getting better at the long-range forecasting months out, that the patterns could be there, and this subseasonal stuff through the next several weeks, and this is seasonal too, going into winter, but for the hurricane season, this is the part that intrigues me the most, and it is about to start. Right now we do have a break. I'll talk about that more in a moment. Hey, a couple of interesting things here. Hurricanes, as bad as they are, they actually serve a purpose in the world, what we call global heat budget and the global heat balance. It's not so much that they take heat out of the tropics per se. That's a kind of a misconception. What they do very efficiently is mix up the ocean and remove the heat out of the ocean, which has an indirect influence eventually on weather patterns. And this is a great example of that over here off the coast of the southeast, where Isaias came up. The water temperatures were brought down a degree or two Celsius. Now they will rebound, and the main intensification of Isaias was right through here, so it's a very small area, but it did churn up the water. But then all the agitation up here really knocked down the temperatures and mixed things up. In fact, let me zoom in on this map. Look at all the different contour lines in here of varying degrees. You know, we don't have just a straight gradient of 29, 28, 27, 26 Celsius. There's like a hodgepodge, because and it was a tropical storm inland, but all that wind blowing through there and just kind of mixing everything up gave us all of this kind of mashup of different sea surface temperatures. And we're going to have a couple of weeks here where we don't have much activity, and it's still just early August, and with any kind of a strong high that sits up here and blows the wind in from the east, these water temperatures will rebound quickly. And just so you know, the 26 Celsius isotherm, that's line of equal temperature, around, let's call it 80 degrees Fahrenheit. That's right there. And so this next one over is 25. There's 24, 23, 22. Yeah, it definitely mixed it up. So let's watch this and see how quickly it starts to rebound as we get towards, let's say, August 15th. And you can also see this very easily on the Western Hemisphere shot of the anomalies map right there. Isaias came along, mixed everything up, but still the anomalies are quite a bit warm up here. That just shows how warm they were to begin with, that even with the storm passing through. But the influence here, you can see this cold wake left behind, and watch what happens as the season progresses. We're going to see these carved out, and I'm just kind of, who knows, right? We're going to see these cold areas carved out, because that's what the hurricanes do. They churn up the water, they bleed off that energy from the oceans more than the atmosphere. The atmosphere is going to cool off as the seasons change anyway. It's the oceans that give the heat to the tropical cyclones. And this is not very warm to begin with. It's much below average. This is much above average, generally speaking, in the grand scheme of things. A degree Celsius, yeah, that's a lot of extra energy. So let's watch how this changes over time from August 5th, and then let's look at it like on October 5th, and watch all the little areas that are carved out. It's going to be quite interesting. Nothing to worry about right now in the Atlantic, the Eastern Pacific. We do have a system here with a 70% chance of development off the coast of Central America, paralleling the coast of Mexico, modeling generally favoring the genesis of this system, so there might be some impacts along Mexico. Let's watch this closely. I'll certainly do so, and we'll report on it accordingly. It's not that the Pacific won't create hurricanes. we're just not going to see very many of them, especially in the central and western Pacific. The typhoon season is going to be way down, and I fully expect that this area over here, because think about it, where this is now is the same longitude as New Orleans. So it's part of the Western Hemisphere, obviously, and even though it's in the Eastern Pacific area of responsibility, the weather doesn't know necessarily. I mean, yes, land influences weather, but geopolitical boundaries and what we name a basin, East Pacific here, Atlantic here, Caribbean, whatever, nature doesn't care. So don't be surprised to see some hurricane problems in this area. It's not like there's not going to be any, but a vast majority of the issues we're going to see will be in the Atlantic side. So here's that system right there. From the vorticity perspective, we'll be watching the tropics to see if any of these kind of bloom and become round. That's what we look for right now. Nothing out there to worry about. That's great. And the Saharan air layer, still fairly prevalent out here with its influence, but at a higher latitude, and this will increase the latitude of the Saharan dust outbreaks, will be more up here by the time we get to about mid-August. And speaking of mid-August, you need to understand something. The traditional peak normally doesn't get started until after around August 15th or August 20th. So we still have a minimum of 10 days and probably 15 days, which is good, because we can kind of take a break, make sure we're ready, right? I still have a lot I've got to do, believe me. But honestly, it's usually not until that last third of August, and then it's off to the races. And as I showed you, coincidental, whatever, coinciding with that is what Ben was saying here, just to reflect on this one more time, that once we get to that time frame, that's the middle part and the latter part of August, it really starts to light up. So, use the time we have now. Nothing on the modeling here. This is the GFS, maybe a little bit of a system out there. This is a week out. Start at the beginning, and you can see the energy tries to roll off Africa there. Nothing over in the Western Caribbean just yet. A few systems try to get going in the Eastern Pacific, as I talked about earlier there. But this is all part and parcel of the notion that the next week to 10 days at least will be nice and quiet, but then after that, all bets are off. All right, so tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I will be the guest on the Stormfront Freaks podcast. I've done this web show a few times. Always fun to talk with Phil and the other folks there. So tune in. It's live. I will tweet the link to that. So if you're not following me on Twitter, now's a good time to do so. These folks are also on Twitter. Real easy to find. Stormfront Freaks, award-winning podcast, very popular. And we'll be talking about the field missions, what I did in Isaias, the hurricane season ahead, etc. Kind of it's an interview, so it should be pretty good. I enjoy it. And I'm very, very excited about this. Our new original series, like a television show that I have produced. 5 episodes out of 8 are in the can. The first one, let me just slow down and back up. It's a series, like a TV show. There'll be 8 of them. I've got 5 finished. Those 5 are already available to all of our patrons. And at any level, that doesn't matter. They are the ones that financed it. They're the producers, really. Think about it. So, like Netflix has subscribers and Amazon Prime has their billions of people that use Amazon. So Amazon Studios produces original content. Like I said, Netflix, you understand. YouTube has their original content but from their subscriber base, etc. It's that world of crowdfunding. And I'm a one-person production company with a lot of people that help me behind the scenes, yes. And so the finished product, I'm very proud of it. It's called the Hurricane Highway. And it's a look back at last year's hurricane season, but from a different perspective, a different way of doing it. We're going to start at the beginning, How did I get into this? That's episode 1, and it's called The First Miles. You see, this is a metaphor, and it's also very literal, because we do drive down the Hurricane Highway. That picture in this CGI-enhanced shot that's the title card, that's actually a photograph out on Bolivar Peninsula in Texas. 87, I think it is, out there. Highway 87, I believe. And I just went in and added some computer-generated, removed a few things and added the title and whatever. But that's literally one of the roads that I've been on, Hurricane Ike. That's the Gulf of Mexico. Excuse me. To the left. I keep forgetting to bring my water up here into the office. I got to do that. And it's dry. We got the power back on, and I put the air down to about 68 because our power was out for 2 days. Anyhow, that's the Gulf over to the left, and that's the title card. It's literally the Hurricane Highway. Episode 1, The First Miles, will be available on YouTube commercial free. Yes, because it is supported by our patrons. And so I want as many people to see it as possible. Our patrons, our crowdfunding supporters, get to see it first. They get to see behind-the-scenes stuff. That's all part of being a patron. Patrons of the arts. William Shakespeare kind of started that whole thing. That's what that's all about. So our gift to you, the crowdfunding group, and me, Brent, our good friend Carrie, who's no longer with us, unfortunately. You'll see, it's part of it, so to speak. He passed away in January. He was one of the producers. It's an incredible journey. 25 years I've been doing this. 500,000 miles of driving. 25 hurricanes, something like that. Numerous other tropical storms. The winter storms. The testing of equipment. How things grew. This thing's got flashbacks in it. You'll love it. It's right up your alley if you like anything related to weather. And I think it's a pretty good job considering that I made it on this laptop right here. A $900 Dell laptop using Adobe Premiere. Pat myself on the back. I mean, think about it. If I had a $10,000 per episode budget from somebody like Netflix or whatever, oh my gosh. And we'll talk about how I put it together later. I'll be doing some interviews where, behind the scenes stuff, the making of or whatever, that's coming up later. All right. So that drops tomorrow in the afternoon on YouTube. It's on Amazon Prime as well. And of course, available to all of our patrons. So if you want to become a supporter, you get access to stuff like that. Patreon.com/HurricaneTrack. So yeah, don't forget, please follow on Twitter. You get good updates. Yes, the numbers it's neat to see it grow, but that's not what boosts my ego. What boosts my ego is the fact that I'm able to do good work and you guys appreciate it. That's what makes me feel good. The 20,000, 50,000, 1 million followers, I'm just glad anybody follows me at all. And speaking of that, on YouTube as well, you know that because that's probably where you're watching this. Or Facebook, because sometimes I upload these to Facebook. I got to use that more as well. Hey, you guys have a great rest of your afternoon. The most important thing is that you tune in. I appreciate that more than you know. It's great to have you from your side of whatever device you happen to be watching and listening from. Don't forget tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, Stormfront Freaks podcast. I'll talk to you more there, and I'll see you again tomorrow. I am Mark Suttoth, HurricaneTrack.com. We'll talk some more later on.